Joining us now from New York is newsroom editor at UnHerd, James Billot. James, thank you so much for joining us. I want to get straight into it. Donald Trump has begun his transition, announcing a number of nominations for his cabinet. And a new poll shows that a slight majority of registered voters approve of the job President-elect Trump is doing in the lead up to his second White House administration. A Harvard Caps Harris poll found 54% of respondents said that they approve of Trump's performance compared to 40% who said they disapproved. What do you put all this down to?
Well, it's interesting to start because Donald Trump, during his first term in office, he rarely, if ever, scraped above 50% approval rating. So this is definitely quite significant. But I would hasten to add that, much like a boxer before they enter the ring, presidents always ride high until they get smacked in the face. And let's bear in mind, he hasn't actually entered office yet. So we can't read too much into this. But I think the weird and wonderful appointments that he's made in the last few weeks has definitely excited more sections of the base than we'd expect.
While we're looking at Donald Trump, I also want to look at Kamala Harris. Another poll found that Kamala Harris is the top choice of Democrat voters to be the party's nominee for the 2028 presidential election. I'm not so sure about that, but she was ahead of rivals like Gavin Newsom and Josh Shapiro. What do you make of that? I feel like it shows that the Democrats are really in a tough spot at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I had to rub my eyes about 3 times before reading this poll because I just could not believe what I was seeing. Kamala Harris has run 2 of the most vapid, platitudinous, and empty campaigns America has ever seen, at least in the 21st century. I would put this down to high name recognition. Democrats don't seem to know many of the rest of the bench. But I'd also say there was still a bit of a sugar high from her campaign, this whole emphasis on joy and what it means to be a Democrat in 2024. I think when there's a little bit more soul searching, and hopefully there will be, Democrats will come to their senses and get a new leader in place.
And what are the main lessons that the Democrats really need to learn here? Did they just lean too far to the left?
That's a significant part of it. I mean, it's a pretty astonishing victory for Donald Trump. 90% of the country's counties swung right. If that's not a confirmation of how well he performed in this election, I don't know what is. Yes, they swung way too hard on left-wing issues, particularly the trans issue. I mean, Donald Trump really hammered Kamala Harris on that video where she essentially consented to saying that illegals deserve to have some kind of sex change, even if they were just been crossing the border. So yes, some of those more aggressive tendencies they should have been punished for. But also Trump just focused on those bread and butter issues: inflation, housing, crime, immigration. All these things have skyrocketed in the last 4 years, and Democrats did not have an answer to that.
Absolutely. Look, we know celebrities were threatening to leave the country if Donald Trump got in, and there are now reports this morning that DeGeneres and her wife Portia de Rossi have moved to England, and sources have told the Wrap that their primary motivation for this was, you guessed it, Donald Trump. Look, are you surprised? When will celebrities get over their obsession of hating Donald Trump?
Well, I have to say I commend them for doing the reverse Harry and Meghan. I don't know many celebrities that leave America and go back to London, but what I think we do need a bit of context in mind here, in that this was very much after she was cancelled a couple of years ago, and she wasn't finding much work since. I mean, she had a Netflix show last year that completely flopped. So let's just say it's very convenient that this Trump presidency came when it did.
Look, Trump has wasted no time making nominations. One of the more controversial picks is his nominee for Attorney General, Matt Gaetz. And a new poll shows that he's among the least favoured of his cabinet nominees. What do you think his chances are of getting confirmed?
Yeah, Matt Gaetz is probably the most interesting pick so far, and probably the most unlikely to make it past Senate confirmation. He has made absolutely no friends in Congress. He actually called Senate the swampiest institution on earth, and CNN actually marked him down as the most anti-establishment figure. Now, to a lot of the MAGA base, that's actually a great sign, and you should wear that as a badge of honor. But when you do need the approval of some of these more establishment Republicans, chances are not looking too good for Matt Gaetz at the moment.
Now to some big news in America. Change of pace. This is very serious. A Venezuelan man convicted of killing US nursing student LAK and Riley has been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jose Ibarra was charged with murder and other crimes for Riley's death earlier in the year in Georgia, and the guilty verdict was reached today. In court, we also heard from LAK and Riley's stepfather, who read a letter that LAK and Riley had privately written to her future husband.
I think one of her last journal entries dated 12/17/23 says it best. So here we go. To my future husband. As silly as I feel writing this, my old small group leader once recommended it, so here I am. To my future husband, I want you to know that I'm thinking about you. I'm working every day to become the best wife I can be.
Yeah, it's hard to find the words for this one. It is so heartbreaking to hear, and that story really just impacted so many people across the country. How are people feeling today?
Well, that was the first time I'd actually seen those comments being spoken as opposed to written in the transcript, and it is even more heart-wrenching than I thought it was. And it really is symptomatic of America's broken immigration system out here. I mean, there have been, under the Biden administration, around 8 million illegal crossings over the southern border, and Jose Ibarra was one such man. And what was so appalling about this tragedy is that not only was he bussed over to New York, but New York flew him out on a free plane ticket down to Atlanta, where he then committed this atrocity. And Donald Trump has responded. He seemed to capture the move, really criticizing and actually, well, backing this decision. He was found guilty on all 10 counts, the very least we could hope for. But it really is symptomatic of just how disastrous the immigration system has been over the last 4 years.
Absolutely, and as you say, Donald Trump has spoken about this. He posted on Truth Social, justice for LAK and Riley. The illegal who killed our beloved LAK and Riley was just found guilty on all counts for his horrific crimes. And as you mentioned, Donald Trump has promised to carry out a mass deportation. How is that going to be conducted over the next 4 years?
Well, this is going to be a real test to see just how much of his agenda he can enact. And it's crucial that he uses those first 100 days and the majority he has in Congress, albeit a very slender majority, to basically push through these quite radical moves. Now, the challenge will be he wants to use the military to conduct these deportations. He's got a border hawk now in place to help facilitate that. But there is going to be resistance not only from Democrats, but from people from within his own party as well. And this is going to be the real test for Donald Trump to see just how much he can accomplish in those first 100 days.
Another issue dominating the headlines this week, Speaker Mike Johnson says he supports restricting single-sex facilities in the Capitol, including restrooms, to individuals of that biological sex, which would effectively ban the first transgender congresswoman from using women's bathrooms in the next Congress. Nancy Mace introduced a resolution this week that would ban transgender women from using women's bathrooms at the Capitol. Here she is.
I'm not going to stand for a man, if someone with a penis is in the women's locker room, that's not okay. And I'm a victim of abuse myself. I'm a rape survivor. I have PTSD from the abuse I've suffered at the hands of a man. So I'm absolutely 100% going to stand in the way of any man who wants to be in a women's restroom, in our locker rooms, in our changing rooms.
Nancy Mace makes a strong case.
She certainly does, and it's a big U-turn from her position in 2022 when she actually supported that, the right to self-identification. It also marks a much broader cultural shift going on in America at the moment, where, strangely, they have really lagged on the gender question from other countries in Europe. Now, we are seeing, particularly in red states, youth transition and gender transition surgeries being banned. There has been a lot of resistance from the Democratic and Biden administration, but Trump has made it a central aim of his to really take on this issue and start giving these rights back to states to enact themselves.
Now, finally, I mentioned this at the start of the show, but Donald Trump's dance moves, well, they appear to have taken the sporting world by storm after multiple US athletes across the country brought it out on the field in front of the cameras. Clips of it are going viral online, and I would say it really kind of captures the mood felt by some in America. What do you put this down to? How has Donald Trump really gathered so much support for him, and then also with his dance moves?
Well, I can promise your viewers that I will not be attempting any of those moves on this show, but it certainly does represent a big change, as you mentioned. I mean, politics is downstream of culture, and this is a really big difference from 2016, when you had people that were actually a lot of shy voters, and Trump's victory was pretty shocking at the time. I think this time round, people just feel a lot more licensed to be coming out. The scale of his win, people are saying, well, actually, there's a lot of other people who agree with my worldview now. And they're now coming around to the idea that, okay, maybe Trump isn't this evil fascist that Democrats are making him out to be. And that's why we're seeing all these figures from John Jones in the UFC, Christian Pulisic in soccer, all taking this dance on home. And it's really been quite interesting to see.
Okay, maybe next time we bring you on the show, you'll bust out the dance moves. James Billot, newsroom editor at UnHerd, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks very much.